Hi, stamping friends. I am so happy that you're here with me today. And today is Thursday, October 28th, 2021, and I am doing this video to show the third project that we made at this month's Stamp Club. So this was from October Stamp Club. There are two other videos showing the two other projects that we made. So each one is an individual video showing that project. And this one today that I'm going to show you is this box that we made. I have made several of these boxes for different holidays. It's a great template to have. But this is one that we're going to make today with the Be Jolly stamp set. And it's not hard to do and it's super fun to make. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to set that aside. Let me mention the October host code. I have it literally chicken scratched on this little note. But if there are products that you would like to order, this is the host code. So you can go to my online store. And if you cannot find that because you're new and have not visited before, go to my blog at stampwithjuliebaum.com. And if you just click on the shop button, it will automatically link you to my online store. That's probably the fastest way to get there if it's your first time. Anyhow, when you get to the payment screen, there'll be a place to enter this host code, and I would love it if you would enter the code. Again, this is good through the end of October, which is just a few days away. All right, so we're going to get started. Let me talk about some of the products that we're using. I mentioned the stamp set, Be Jolly. This stamp set, I feel like, is kind of a sleeper. It's in the July to December mini catalog. I'm going to show you a couple different things in here. But the reason I said it's kind of a sleeper is it didn't jump right out to me in the beginning as far as like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite Christmas set. I have to have it. But the more that I've used it, it has certainly become a favorite of mine for this holiday season. Okay, I have all these Post-it notes and I can't find the one of the page that I need. So maybe it's because I already have the stamp set out and wasn't going to show you the page. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here it is in the catalog. It's called Be Jolly. It's got 9 stamps in it for $21. So what a steal. Now this particular stamp set does not have coordinating dies. So I am going to be doing some fussy cutting, but it's not hard to do. And if you didn't feel like fussy cutting, you could also just use an oval or a circle punch or die for many of the images if you don't feel like fussy cutting, but it's kind of fun to do it sometimes. All right, so then I also want to point out, we might as well just go to all my Post-it notes at this point. The Heartwarming Hugs 12 by 12 designer series paper. That is the designer series paper that we're going to be using on this project. I love this paper. We had it available last Christmas. It came out again this year because as much as I like to use blue and snowflakes or some of the non-traditional Christmas colors at Christmas time, I always need to do some things in your classic reds and greens. So this packet of paper is a favorite. All right, so we're going to be using that. And one of the colors in here is Mossy Meadow. So we'll be using Mossy Meadow cardstock. Here's that. Let me see what other things I wanted to point out, and then I'll move the catalog out of the way. Oh, I'm going to be using a die here in just a moment. And it is from the Christmas season bundle. So the stamp set, well, here's the dies, and this is the image that I'm going to be using that I've cut out, all right? And then let me show you the stamp set. It is one of those ones that is a little bit interesting for this reason. Here we go. All right, here's the stamp set. But a lot of the dies that are available in the bundle are these tag shapes, which are really super handy to have for all kinds of projects. So although you're going to want the dies to cut out your pine cones and your berries and all these wonderful little boughs and stems, some of these tag shapes are super good to have for all kinds of things. So, all right, let me set that aside. Here is that shape. All right, this was just pre-cut before I went on camera out of basic white cardstock. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish this little piece before we move on so I can kind of clear out as we go. I'm gonna grab my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine for this next step. So I'm taking my white die cut piece and I'm using an embossing folder. These actually come as a set of 2 called, oh gosh, dots and squares, checks. I think checks and dots. So they come together. We're going to be using the dots. So in my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss, I need a 1 plate. I'm going to put this little cutout that I've already prepared inside my embossing folder. Kind of straighten it out a little. All right, and then close the hinge. And you always want to put hinge in first when you're putting it through your machine. And then I need a 3 plate on top of that. So let me get this cranked through here. I'll tell you, most of the time I reach for my Stampin' Cut and Emboss, the large machine, but when I am filming or I need something to just be smaller and more compact, it's nice to grab the mini. All right, moving that out of the way. And here is now our shape with those yummy texture dots on it. All right, I hope you can see that in the light. All right, so that's prepared because we're gonna need that for our project as well. All right, I am going to grab my Simply Scored and we're gonna do some scoring. Let me also show you all of the pieces that are gonna be required for this project, okay? So, we have a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock. Okay, and this piece measures 7.5 by 9.5. All right, so that's your piece of cardstock. And let me go ahead and score it. Then I can move the Simply Scored out of the way and I'll tell you all about the rest of the pieces. All right, so 9.5 by 7.5. I'm going to start with it here in the landscape position and score at a 1/2 inch. At 2 3/4, 5 inches, and 7 1/4 inches. Then I'm going to rotate, so I'm in the portrait position, and score at 1 3/4, at 4 3/4, and at 7 inches. All right, so that's your scoring. I'll say it one more time. You're going to score at 1/2 inch, 2 3/4, 5 inches, and 7 1/4. That's on the landscape direction. And on portrait at 1 3/4, 4 3/4, and 7. All right, so we have that piece. Then you're going to need a couple of pieces of designer series paper that coordinate with the color of cardstock you chose. So we're using the Heartwarming Hugs designer series paper. And I have 3 pieces that all measure the same. These are, you see my pretty grid paper. This is the festive grid paper. The back is a red Christmassy print. And this side is a blue Christmassy print. It's kind of pretty. All right, so this is, all right, these are 3 inches by 2 1/8, and you will need 3 of those. Okay, let me double check. Yes. And then you will need one piece of designer series paper that is 2 1/8 inch square. Then besides that, all you need are some basic white scraps to do your stamping on. So this is what I'm gonna do for this video. I'm gonna create the box and get that finished. That way, if you don't have time to stick around for all the stamping and the actual decorating of the box, at least you'll know how the box works, the mechanics, and so forth. All right, so let's do that. I'll grab my bone folder and just crease my score lines. So I want to mention, especially if you are watching this video pretty close to today's date, I have an event coming next Tuesday, which is November 2nd of 2021. It's going to be on Facebook Live, so you'll need to find me there. But we're going to do stamps and bingo. We're going to play bingo for prizes, so of course that is a lot of fun. And also, I'll be doing 3 project tutorials, probably 2 cards and 1 tag. I'm gonna do all Christmas theme for this particular Stampin' Bingo night. And it's free to play, at least for this first one. I wanna get as many participants as I can. And so all you need to do is contact me to register. So it's free to play, but you do need to pre-register before November 2nd. So you can do that by emailing me at info@stampwithjuliebaum.com. I'll get your email and we can connect that way, because what you need to do to register is to choose 5 numbers between 1 and 25. Those will be the numbers that you use to play bingo with, but I need to know your numbers so I can keep track on my end. So that's why, even though it's free to play, you do need to register. So contact me, give me your numbers so you're registered, and then I'll see you on Facebook Live at 6:30 Pacific time on November 2nd. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, so I have my lines all scored and burnished, and now we're gonna do some cutting. So I'm gonna start on this end down here with the skinny, I think that was a 1/2 inch end. I'm gonna completely remove this little area, this rectangle. And we're gonna completely remove this area, which is a rectangle and an attached square. We're gonna remove that completely. All right, this tab is staying, but I'm gonna take a little wedge or a notch out of it. By notching your tabs, it just takes a little bit of the bulk out when you go to assemble your box. So that's a helpful practice that we've kind of all adopted. Now, what I'm gonna do is at the top here, let me mention, I've got my smaller area down here, and at the top here is the big area with the square and also these little rectangles. So make sure that you have your paper, your cardstock in the correct orientation. So this first area is going to stay completely intact, but I am going to snip down these lines. So don't get confused, but I'm gonna flip it around so I can cut easier. All right, so I'm just cutting right down the score line. There are 1, 2, 3 of them. Okay, now I'm going to flip this with the top back up so I can explain. This tab I'm going to leave completely intact. This tab I'm going to cut in half, and you can just eyeball it and get rid of that. The third one over, I'm working right to left, the third one over is going to come out completely. I have my trash on that side of me today, so I keep pitching things that way. Usually it's right here and I sweep it off. All right, and then this last one on the end, you're also going to eyeball but cut off in half. So this is what you have at the top. All right, now at the bottom, I'm going to snip on each scored line up to the line that it intersects with. So there's 3 of those. And then on 2 of the tabs, this one and this one, I'm also just going to notch them. Again, just to take a little bit of the bulk out of the assembly. All right, really at that point, that's all you need to do. We don't need to notch anything else. Here, let me lay it down flat so you can get a picture of this. I am going to round these corners, and my corner rounder is just out of reach. So hold on just a second while I grab that. Okay, and right this second, I'm forgetting the actual name of this punch. Triple corner punch, maybe. So what I want to do is I want to free this edge up completely. So I'm tucking this tab back because I want my edges to go into the punch and line up snugly against the guides. And then I can punch and get a nice rounded corner. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm gonna line up the cardstock inside, get the edges of my cardstock lined up nice and securely with the guides that are on the punch. Punch down, straight down, and I get my other rounded corner, all right? So we're gonna grab some adhesive. I'm gonna use tear and tape for this. All right, the places where the adhesive is gonna go is on this tab here. So I'll go ahead and put a piece there. And I know that the tear and tape, I think I've said this before, I know that the tear and tape is tearable. You can tear it, not terrible, like bad, but like tearable. But I tend to cut it. It's a little bit hard sometimes for me to grab it and tear it right where I need it to. So I've got a piece of adhesive there. Then I'm gonna flip this flap up and put some adhesive on the bottom of that guy. And I am going to add some more right here next to the seam and get some more. Ooh, where's my end? And really at that point, that's enough adhesive. But if you want to secure it an extra little bit, flip the bottom of this one up. And let's just put one piece on there. That won't hurt anything. If you don't do this extra piece, that's okay. Your box will still stay together. But this is just going to reinforce the bottom of my box just a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to grab my take your pick tool and get my tape backing peeled up. Now I love when this happens and you have a project that you can just fold. I'm gonna fold this edge right over and it's gonna meet up with that tab. Oh, it's perfect and easy, okay? And then I'm going to get ready to remove the backings of these and seal up the bottom. But before I do that, I'm gonna do 2 things. One is, this will be an interesting experiment because as I've been filming, I realized that I don't have my microphone plugged in, which I usually do when I film. So the camera's gonna jiggle for just a teeny bit because I am gonna plug in my microphone. And the experiment will be, because the beginning of this video was filmed without it, and now, of course, is being filmed, the rest of it, with it. So I can do my own field test and see how much the microphone helps or doesn't. So while my box is still flat, I'm going to go ahead and attach my designer paper. Sometimes it's easier to do while it's flat, although this particular one, you could do it after the fact. So let's get a little peek here. Here is the top flap of my box. So it's going to go in like this. So this is the front. All right, this area right here is the front. So I'm going to put my first piece of designer paper right there. And I'm going to just attach that with some liquid glue. I had gotten down to where I was literally out of liquid glue. So you know how when you're down to the bottom of one and you're shaking and waiting for the end of it to come down? Well, this one's brand new, so I have to be careful to not overdo it. All right, here was the front. So I've got my first piece of designer paper on there. And the way I'm doing this box is the front and the two side panels have designer paper. The back is left plain. If you want to put a piece of designer paper on the back, of course you could, and then you would have just needed 4 of these pieces in this size instead of only 3. All right, so I've got my front, one side, and a second side. The checks would be pretty too, the plaid. All right, I got up a second ago to reach for that punch. And when I did, I saw my little 3/4 inch punch, which is calling out to me because I actually need it too. So I should have grabbed it when I was up. Yeah, I'm gonna grab my 3/4 inch punch. We don't have a lot of the circle punches available anymore, and I do kind of miss them, but you either already have them because you've added them to your collection over the years that you've been stamping, or you may have dies. If you don't have dies, we have lots of circle dies, so that's another way to get your shapes. But if you have a small circle punch, it doesn't even have to be exactly this size, but any small circle punch, you can make this little thumb notch. The box is fine without it, so don't completely think that you can't make this box if you don't have this part. But what I'm going to do is just take a bite out of it, not the whole circle, just take a little bite out. And now you can see when my box is shut, it's got that cute little, get in there, it's got that cute little thumb notch. I should put the bottom of this together first so it will fit a little bit better. Okay, let me do that so that I don't crunch it. All right, so on the bottom, I'm going to seal it up. So I will tuck the 2 plain flaps in first, and then this was that extra one I did with just 1 piece of tape. So I'll do that one next. And I have my box flat on the table just so it kind of can be squared up. And then when I fold the flap, I'm also going to square up these edges so it's really good and square and you don't have anything hanging off the edge. And then I can do my final flap, which has a lot of adhesive on it to reinforce the bottom. All right, and same thing, I'm just going to kind of square it up, make sure it's nice and tight, get that sealed. And at this point, it's nice to grab something, either the end of your, take your pick tool and you can kind of press it down in there, or also your bone folder works great. You just want to get in there and kind of make sure that that tear and tape has sealed itself shut. And as I'm doing this, I can peek right here. I've got a little edge here. Probably when I was snipping my seams, I missed a little part. So I'm going to clean it up. It's going to help that flap to go in a little bit nicer instead of crunching. And the nice thing about most of the projects that we do is they're really forgiving and you can fix them. It's very rare that you're making something and totally mess it up and have to toss it and start over. All right, now you can see that that flap fits in there just perfectly. Okay, I'm going to glue the last piece of designer paper on here. I could have done it while it was flat as well, but I was talking and moving along so quickly that I didn't. So let's add that. And then you've got the mechanics to this box and the measurements and how to put it together. What I'm going to do is try to put a link down in the description of the video that will take you to a PDF that has a little template, a little diagram of this box to help you make them in the future instead of having to watch the whole video over again. All right, so there is our cute box. This is in my collection known as template number 2, box template number 2. And then I'm going to go ahead, if you have time to stick around, I'll show you all of the stamping and the decorating that we did to complete this box. So I grabbed my stamps from the Be Jolly stamp set. We're going to use the tree, the bird. Oh, the bird is so cute, just by himself. The star, and then also the words, A Merry Hello. I want to show you the Santa. The Santa is super cute when you stamp him and color him, but we're not using the Santa on this project. I have a different project that I'll be filming that uses the Santa. So what I did is I just took my Memento black ink and stamped the images on white scraps. Again, we're not using the Santa this time. So there's my tree, my bird, my star. Then I stamped on another basic white scrap the words A Merry Hello, and I did that with real red ink. So I took the Merry Hello, inked it in real red, stamped it, and then just took some scissors. You could also use your paper trimmer and trim this down. This is just going to get kind of a whimsical little angle on it for this project. So I've got my Merry Hello set aside. I have my stamped images just stamped in black ink on basic white cardstock. And then I'm going to grab my Stampin' Blends and do my coloring. Now, instead of taking the time to color everything, I have my bird already colored and fussy cut with scissors. And I have my star that's ready to go. Here's Merry Hello. But I will show you how I colored my tree. In case you're new to using Stampin' Blends, sometimes it's helpful to watch a few times. So the Stampin' Blends come in color combinations that have a light and a dark version. So this is Mossy Meadow, and the first thing I'm going to do is use the light Mossy Meadow to color in my tree. Now for the most of the time, I will use the brush tip of the marker. There's also a bullet tip that I'm going to use as well, but the brush marker gives you a lot of coverage and very quickly. It also, as you see, the ink kind of spreads, so you almost just lay color down and let it do its thing. One nice thing about our Stampin' Blend markers, these are alcohol markers, and because of that, the way that they evaporate keeps them from having like those dark coloring lines that you might have with regular markers. If you start coloring and then stop and then go back, you would have dark and light spots. With these markers, it just blends together so nicely. So again, I'm using my light Mossy Meadow green Stampin' Blend. This is a great marker. Go around my star. I'm also using a very light touch when I use the brush marker, just barely setting the tip of the marker down on the paper. The paper just really wants to absorb it and accept the ink. A word of caution is it does go through. So I've never had it go through this paper onto something, but just a word of caution in case you had something important or maybe your tabletop underneath you. Maybe stick a piece of scratch paper under it just to be safe. All right, so I've just about got my light green in place. All right, it's a pretty green. The next thing I'm going to do is take the dark of Mossy Meadow, and this time I'm going to use the bullet end, so you have a little bit more control of this end for smaller things. And I'm going to just do some of these little shadows that really the artwork in the stamp already created for you, so you can just kind of trace it. So I'm doing under these little boughs right here. I'm going to add a little dark down here, because I think at the bottom of the tree there might be some shading. And then what you can do, if you've gone a little heavy on your shading, you can always come back with the lighter one, the lighter of the pair, and blend, thus the word Stampin' Blends, blend it out a little bit to make it not so obvious. Okay, that looks just how I want it to. All right. Then the next thing I'm going to do is grab Real Red. So this is the Real Red Light and Dark Stampin' Blend. I'll use the lighter of the two, and I am going to use the bullet end since I'm doing a smaller area. So I will do, I think each time I color the tree ornaments, I pick a different way to do it. This time I'm going to do the top one, which kind of looks like a glass ornament to me, and these two round ornaments with red. And then I've chosen Daffodil Delight as my yellow. So I'll use the dark of those two for my stars. And then this last ornament, which really is the same shape as that, but I think it needs, I don't know, I think it needs one more yellow ornament. All right, so there's my tree. So again, it's a simple enough image that it's charming but easy to color. It's not a lot of intricate areas. I have Crumb Cake here, light and dark. I'll take the lightest of the two and color the tree base all over. And then I'll take the darker and just, there's kind of like little lines in the artwork. So I'm just going to do every other line in the darker. And then I think that maybe there would be a little darker area down here at the bottom. Maybe even here, the tree might create a shadow. So I'll add a little darker there. I am not very artistic. I've told you guys that. I can copy. I'm a pretty good crafter, but I'm not artistic. So when it comes to like knowing where the shadows are and where the light is coming from, I'm really not very good at it. So you can do exactly as much as I can do, I promise. So there's that. All right, so then what I did is I just took my paper snips and cut it out. So fussy cut, and ta-da, here is our tree. Oh, see, this one I did different. So you can do your ornaments however you want to. So now we have the tree, the bird, the star, and the Merry Hello. All right, to decorate our box, I'm going to come back to this piece that we created in the beginning and put some tear and tape on the back of it. This is going to be like a backdrop to my tree. I think this piece will, oh, almost fit. So I'll put this on first. This is going to go on the front panel. Like so. And then I'm going to put my tree on. See how it kind of sets the tree apart? So let's put, now you could pop up your tree if you wanted to. I'm going to keep it flat. There's kind of already a lot going on my box, so, but it would be cute if you wanted to pop it up with dimensionals. Sorry if the camera just shook. I did bump my camera stand. All right, so there's the tree. Now, even though this white piece sticks out a teeny bit wider than the box, for the most part, that's the whitest. So I'm going to have my tree just inside the edge of the box. I don't think it's going to matter. It's not like I'm going to mail it or anything, but those are kind of the limits that I'm working with. All right, then I'm going to add my star. So let's do that with a mini dimensional. So these are not only smaller around, but they also stick up just a slight bit less than a full-size dimensional. So obviously it fits perfectly here on my star as far as size. And then I also know that it's not going to pop it up quite as much as a full-size one would. It's almost imperceptible how different it is, but it is a teeny bit different. All right, so there's my star. It's coming out cute. Okay, then I'm going to add a Merry Hello. And all right, it just might stick out a teeny bit on that side too, but I'm comfortable with that. I'll just add this with tear and tape as well. And then we have 2 or 3 more things to finish this off. Thanks for hanging in here with me today while we made our Merry Hello box. All right, so I'm just going to pull this towards me so I can see if it's straight, and then I'll put it back in the center camera. All right, so there's a Merry Hello attached. Now I'm going to take my bird and another mini Stampin' Dimensional. Actually, I'm going to use 2. So I'll put one right behind his head and hat, Christmas hat, and one below. And then because I did this before, I already know, it's going to look really cute if he's kind of perched just on top of your tag, like so. All right, so I've got my star that's popped up and my little bird that's popped up. Cute. All right, to finish this, let's do 2 things. I'm going to grab some red organdy, this is red sheer ribbon, and we're going to tie this one up. Now, right when I finish this one, I'm going to show you 2 other boxes that I've done with totally different designs, so you can expand your imagination and your inspiration. So I'm just going to tie this one shut. You could do a bow if you are bow inclined, or just a knot. If you wanted to tie it with a knot, that's fine too, especially if you're bow challenged. We'll see how I do today with my purple nails. Not too bad. All right, there's my bow, and trim up the ends. All right, I'll also show you one with a knot. If you wanted to finish it with a knot, that's cute too. It doesn't matter, so don't make yourself crazy. And then one extra little thing that makes this shimmery and festive is just a little bit of Wink of Stella. So I'm going to take my Wink of Stella and just kind of scribble it all in the green of my tree. Wink of Stella is hard to see the effects on camera, but when you see it live, it's softly shimmery. So it's a really nice effect, but it's not glittery. It's not going to fall off of the paper. It's just a glitter shimmery effect. I probably should have added this before I put my Merry Hello on there, but that's okay. All right, so there's my Wink of Stella, and there's our box. Let me show you 2 others that I've done. Again, the box itself is the same. And this time I used Tidings and Trimmings designer paper. This one is done on an evening evergreen box with the, I want to make sure that I'm saying that paper correctly. So let me look that up real quick. I've used it quite a bit this season. And I want to make sure that I tell you the right. Oh, no, it's in the annual catalog. That's why. It's in the annual catalog. All right, so it's out of reach, and I don't want to take the time to go over and get it. I think it's Tidings and Trimmings designer series paper. It's 6x6. It's in the annual catalog. So on this one, Early Evergreen, I used soft succulent ribbon. You can see the images are stamped from that same coordinating stamp set that coordinates with the designer paper. You'll never be able to tell on camera, but this red is our red velvet paper, so it actually feels velvety. And I've got my little stems tucked down inside of the stocking the To From tag. I want to tell you what I like about this one is my ribbon is wrapped around the middle like a belly band instead of the top. So you can get in and out of this box without interrupting any of the decorations. So that's kind of a nice way to do the box. And then this one is with the same designer paper and the same stamp set. This is on Misty Moonlight, the blue box, and the paper has blue in it. So when you put it with blue ribbon, with blue paper, it really pops. And same images and die cuts that coordinate with that Tidings and Trimmings paper. And on this one, I tucked an extra little red velvet stem in the bow. So a very fun box to make. I hope you'll make a few before Christmas gets here or for any other occasion. I'll put a lot of descriptions or information down in the video description at the bottom of this page, as well as ordering information. And again, if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you need to order product, I would really appreciate that you order through me. It helps me keep my business going. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.